Welcome back to the LAWNPRO tutorial. Today we will emulate the test that you will be asked to perform at the end of the series. I will give an example of exactly how to go about doing the test, and you can see firsthand exactly what it is that we're looking for. We're going to be going over these steps in the module, starting with how to enter a customer, then entering a property, moving on to make an event, clocking a job time, then we will review an event, convert to an invoice, produce a statement, and collect a payment. There are many ways to do each one of these steps, and it's not exactly a science. Any version of events that gets you through the flow in an organized manner is perfectly acceptable. So it doesn't have to be insanely rigid. We will go ahead and begin now. In the practice account, the very first thing I want to do is enter a customer. I will go over to the customer module. I will click on customers again, and I'm going to enter myself in as a new customer. I will leave some of these fields alone, and I will go directly over the business name and type in all capital letters, my name. I will repeat my name here, my last name here. I can leave all of that blank, and I will fill in my cellular phone. I will then include my email. I will leave all of these blank. The city and state are ready for me, so I'll leave those alone. My zip code, 37211. Everything else can be left alone. There's no need to fill out any of those other fields at this time. And I will save customer. Oh, forgot my own address. Choose the default option as it's provided. And everything else looks good. Next, it will ask if I want to add the property. For the purposes of the test, I will go ahead and click yes. Property name, oftentimes for the customer, is the address that was provided for in the first step when you're filling out the customer information. If it isn't, then you would change it, but for the default purposes of the test, you will use your own address or address that you choose to insert instead of your own private address if you don't want to share it. And the property name of the address is usually given as the exact street address as well. So this property name is 2929 Elizabeth Street, and is provided for in capital letters. I will double check that there are no taxes. All taxes say 0. That's how we want it. Double check the address, make sure everything else looks fine. It does. None of this information needs to be filled out. And at this point here, we'll have to fill in the crew for the property, which at this time is really representative of the neighborhood that it's in. This part, you'll be performing this part correctly if you just simply choose A1. In a realistic situation, we will need to identify the actual neighborhood in an accurate way, but for the purpose of the test and the reality that you may not know the neighborhoods around Nashville, that won't be required. I do need to provide one line item. We will use the line item lawn mow, and we will put a cost rate of $50 on that. And we will proceed to save the property. Next, it'll ask if we want to add a visit for the property as the first option. We will click yes. Here we have a choice between a single visit or a recurring series of visits. In order to test on all the possible functionality of the LAWNPRO event creating process, we will choose recurring series of events. I want the series to be occurring every 7 days, meaning I want my lawn mowed every 7 days. The start date, I want it to be 1 week from today's date. So I'm going to say that it starts on the 27th. The end date of every series unless it's specified as a different date by the customer, will be December 31st of the current year. Next, we will type in the title. The event will begin with the word master. Then it will have the type of event. We will all use full service mo. We will then have a code, for example, how often the lawn is being serviced, which is C7. And we will then provide the neighborhood that it is in. In this example, it was Cree Hall, and the price is $50. There will be other codes that we will learn, but we will not add those at this time. The lawn mow color is blue, so that will not be modified. The service here is the full service lawn mow at $50. And we will add one note to practice adding a note that says call. No, we won't use that note. Beware of neighbor's dog. Neighbor's dog. Neighbor's dog is ferocious. Ferocious. Price there will be 0. We will double check the price here total is 50. The price here is 50. And here in this notes field, we will also have the price as 50. Here we will add the crew assignment at the time being, which is now the neighborhood, and it'll stay as defaulted at Creve Hall. I am the person assigned to that job because I'm assigned all neighborhoods, so that there is a default. And then we're ready to save. The visit has now been created. We can see here on the calendar several other examples of events on the calendar. I want to double check that this event has been created correctly, so I will look for Kumar Gonzalez. I will search for him, and then I will see him here in the calendar every 7 days, and I will double check into the future using these arrows to get me from the month of June over to the month of July, where I can see that the series continues. There's one other step that we must go back and do, which is to go back into the customers module and the customer submodule, and I can see myself as having been added here. If I had a large listing, I'd be able to come in and search for myself, and then I'll be the only one that comes up in the database listing. And I'll come in and edit, and then I'm going to go to, and this is where we enter in the customer portal login information. We will need to copy paste the customer's email address, paste it into that field, and then we'll provide them with a password. The default password is always 21, the first name of the customer in lowercase letters, Kumar, followed by the number 075. We'll copy that password, press save. I will hit OK. I will click the login required button, and I will add in the not visible to customers, I will store that password there. Later, when I come down, I don't need to save any information here. It's automatically saved. When I go backwards and I return back to the customer list, I'll be able to see that in the notes field, the notes that are not available to the customer, I'll be able to see that the password has been provided. So I'll be able to know that the customer's portal has been activated. And from here, we will take a 1-minute pause. All right, so far, we've gone through entering a customer, entering the property, and creating an event. Next, we will move to clock a job time. To clock a job time, we will use exactly one of those events that we've just created for ourselves. We will need to go over to the schedule and go into the schedule submodule. Inside that schedule, because I had the filter already set to Kumar Gonzalez, I already have the Kumar Gonzalez events. I will simply click into one of the events. I will scroll down to the bottom of the page, and there's a button here that says Start Work. I can currently see that the actual time spent is set at 0 to 000, and I will click the Start Work button. The clock will start running, and we will wait for about 1 minute, as I believe it takes 1 minute for it to record that time. This would be an employee out in the field pressing that button on their smartphone when they arrive at the property. They would click the button and then proceed to get out of their vehicle, get their equipment out of the trailer, take photographs of the property, mow the front and back, check access, take photographs afterward, and essentially take care of all their responsibilities. And then when they're finished, they would put their equipment back up into the vehicle, again, take their photographs of the property, and make sure that everything is completed, and then they would shut off this clock. All of the time that is used to speak to a customer or anything related to the service is included in the job clock. So the job clock starts at the very moment you arrive, and then you stop it when you are ready to pull out. So for all intents and purposes, 1 minute has gone by, and we can hit the stop work button. And later, when the screen is refreshed, we will be able to see that the start button was clicked at 4:59. It ended at 5, and this will update to 1 minute. You can see here as well, it says 1 minute. So for all intents and purposes, that time has been clocked, and we will leave that there for now and check out the next step. Next step in the process is called review an event. So in order to review an event, I've got to create an event, and that was an event that I've just made there. Now I can proceed to review the event that I just made. So we will return back to that event, and we're going to say that this event, now that I've clocked some time on, we're going to click this complete box, and now the event turns green. Now, for intents and purposes, we want to be reviewing this data from here on in the grid view. We want to switch over to the grid view. We have several different ways to look at the calendar. We're going to click on the grid view to see a much more comprehensive listing. So here is the event that we had closed, and now we are ready to review an event. The event is closed. The very first thing that we have to do is open the event. So the first thing we're going to do is click this green circular arrow, and that will turn it from green to white. Do you want to reopen the event? We say yes. The event is now open. Now that the event is open, I can click the Edit Pencil button as it is accessible, and I can come back in here and I can review lots of information about the job. Let's say, for example, that I knew that the grass was extra tall when this lawn was mowed. I reviewed the photographs, or the tech flagged the yard and sent me a message and said, hey, this property was more difficult. So we would come in here and we would add an extra line called extra, always in capital letters, extra tall feet. And we're going to charge this customer an additional $20, changing the price to $70, meaning that I will now need to add an additional price. And this is the way that we do that, so that everyone can see that the normal price is usually $50. It's been upcharged to $20, and then the end result is $70. We will copy, and then we will paste this here at the bottom as well. Now I see that that matches, and this matches over here. I also at some point have realized that this job was completed by an individual, so we'll just switch that assignment to myself, Kumar. I was the individual who finished that job. And last but not least, I'm the individual who's reviewing the job. So I'm going to put my initials here, KG. Letting it be known that I have reviewed it, I've increased the price, and everything else looks about correct. From here, we will save the job by clicking Update Visit. And now that the job has been reviewed, we're ready to close it again one more time. We can click the little box and click the Close button. We will not use Close an Invoice directly. We will just use Close. Once the job is closed, the job will turn green. Now the job is reviewed and the job is green, and we're ready to go to the next step. So there we clocked the job time, we reviewed an event, and now we're ready to convert to an invoice and follow on into the last 3 steps. Alright, so we will again check the small box in the left-hand side of the column, and we will then go to close an invoice. Now, before we go to close an invoice and event, we want to be familiar with the invoice area so that when the invoice moves over there, we're able to see it and see it clearly and know where it came from. So we're going to open up a duplicate tab at this time. We'll click the duplicate tab. And in this duplicate tab, we will scroll down and choose Finances and Invoices. And here I have a list of shell invoices, invoices that aren't real. And I know that today's date happens to be 6/20. So the last invoice that was created in here was June the 8th. I want to make sure that everything is very clear. I'm going to click the invoice date column, and I'm going to be able to toggle this arrow. I can toggle it up or I can toggle it down in order to see them in a particular order. Now, because all the dates in here are all June the 8th, it's a little bit difficult to tell which order it is in. But if I'm not mistaken, this would be in descending order, which is what I would like. I would like the absolute newest date at the top. So let's see if that works out the way I intended. So currently, June 8th are all the dates that are here for these invoices. When I return back to the other screen and I actually hit the close and invoice button, it's going to invoice that event. That invoice was an invoice that has the date of June 27th. We'll assume that it's June 27th, and we will hit yes. And when we get to the following invoice page, we're going to go back over here, and then we're going to hit refresh, and we're going to see that event. And there it is, Kumar Gonzalez. Because today's date is actually the 20th, but it was on the calendar of the 27th, we're going to need to adjust a little bit of information here, which can be a little confusing. I apologize. So I will come in here and I will click on this box, and where it says June the 20th, I'm going to click the Change the Date of Invoices tab, and I'm going to put it into the future just for the sake of doing it as if it would be done in real life. So the date of the service should match the date of the invoice, and I will hit Update. After I'm done, I will see that June 27th is the top invoice, and it was I was the customer, I was also the crew member, the price that was associated with the job, and it is all there. So that is me converting an event to an invoice. But just to review, I began over on this side. I noted the date of the invoice, the date of the event, excuse me. I clicked this box, I clicked Close an Invoice, and I ended up over here on the invoices side, in which case it reassigned the date to today's actual date, which is 6/20. So I had to use the Change the Date of Invoices function in order to change the date. I can do that to change a group of dates all at one time if I wanted to. And now I have it here as June the 27th. I review the pricing, and I am complete with this step. We are now ready to move on to the next step. The next step is to produce a statement. Now, in order to produce a statement, I obviously have to have several invoices. In order to have several invoices, I have to have several events. So I can accomplish that by simply returning back over to LAWNPRO, going back to the original tab, and I will highlight this green box here again in order to make duplicate events. This is another function. I will create duplicate events. I will hit yes. Now I have two of those events, and I can tell that both of them are showing up as invoiced. I'm going to open one of these events next. The one that has the duplicate label is the one that I know I created after the original. I will open this by clicking that and opening here. Waiting for that to load, we will now see the event in white once it is open, and I'll proceed to make several duplicate events just so that I can have several events to open. So I'm going to go ahead and actually click both of them at once and click duplicate events again. That'll produce 4 events that I can use. There we go. And I need to locate the ones that say duplicate. That one says duplicate, that one says duplicate, and that one says duplicate twice. So I will need to come in here, and we are now going to reopen this event. Hit yes. There we are. And now I have 3 different events, all of them for $70 that are all essentially on June 27th. Just for the sake of an extra practice, I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to change the dates on some of these events. We're going to say that that is no longer on June 27th. We're going to make it June 26th. I'll hit the end button to get down to update the visit. And now we'll just repeat that same procedure with the other ones. That one was the 26th. We're going to switch this one to, say, the 25th. There we are. And we'll switch this one to the 24th. I'm going to get rid of that duplicate. Switch this over to the 24th, just to give them a little variation, and update. All right, so now I have an event on the 27th that is already closed and invoiced. I have another event on the 26th, on the 25th, and the 24th. So now I have 4 events. I want to make a statement. Now I have a lot of data in order for me to make a statement. I will then proceed to convert all these to an invoice. I'll check on the 3 boxes, and then I'm going to close and invoice all 3. Once I do that, I'll come over to the test account tab that I have open, the duplicate tab. They now will populate with the 3 new invoices that I've added over to this side. All I need to do is hit the refresh button, and I will see that Kumar Gonzalez as a customer now has many invoices. Now that there's a grouping of invoices, we can all benefit from simply putting in the filter for me as a customer, and then I'll be able to see all of my 4 invoices, and they're here. And the dates on them are assigned as June the 20th and June the 20th and June the 20th, because by default it's going to give the day's date, June the 20th, as the initial invoice date. We need to change that. How do we know which one is which? The easiest way to do it is to click the edit button in order to enter this event, and I'll be able to read the actual service date that the job or the event was created. Here is the service date on June 26th. I will need to change the invoice date to match the service date to June 26th. I'll hit the end button on my keyboard, fly down, and hit update invoice. I'll then hit the return key to get back to the list of invoices, and I'll repeat the process. This one also needs to be modified. I'll hit the edit key. The date is the 25th. That was the service date. I now need it to match here on the invoice date, the 25th. And I will hit update invoice so that I can go and complete the last invoice. Here on the last invoice, it is still set to the 20th. That was the 25th, the 26th, the 27th. This is the last one. I'll hit the edit button. And not surprisingly, I will change the date over to the 24th. When that process is complete, I'll return back to the list and I'll begin to create the statement that now has the necessary invoices on it so that I can populate it with multiple invoices. Hit the return key to get back to the invoices list. And here we are. So we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 invoices ranging in their dates here. And the customer owes a total of $280. We have the ability to create statements one of 2 ways. Let's review exactly where we are in the process before we begin that. We had just finished converting to an invoice. We did that 4 times in order to have the data that we needed to produce a statement. That's the step we're in now. And in order to produce that statement, we have a couple different ways. The first way is to simply take the snip tool and just run over the data that you want to select. These buttons here are particularly not useful for the customer, so we'll cut those off. The sent status and the status are not necessary, and if you just take that snip there, oftentimes that is a good enough way to produce a quick statement, perhaps for another employee or another office person, or even just to give a customer a quick review of where they are in their statement. They can see the dates, they can see the amount that they have due, and if they have any available credits, it's all available right there. If you choose to make a more professional statement, we will move on to making a statement number 2. So this is statement number 1 in the test. You'll be asked to just simply take your snipping tool that is available usually under all Microsoft Windows, and I imagine iOS also has your own snip tool. Please get that ready for the test. I'll ask you to do a snip. And then we can move on to the second type of statement that can be made. All you simply need to do is click the print button. And when you click the print button, you will get a PDF, and it will produce a PDF that will give you different options. I'm going to call this right here test statement. And I'm going to move it onto the desktop. Maybe we'll say, yeah, we're going to make a folder here. Just call it test. And on my desktop, I'm going to leave that test statement file there. I'm going to hit save. And as it populates in Chrome, I will then click here, and I can then have this launch, and I have this, nice handy little statement. Now, notice that there are some columns that are a little bit cut off. Notice that the statement isn't that clean. Perhaps some of the information is running into itself. And so we can improve the look of that statement by doing one thing. Here in this column pull-down menu, we can remove some of the options that are not necessary. We'll remove select. The invoice number will stay. The date will stay. The customer name will stay. The title description isn't being used currently, but it will stay. And the property name, we will only use the property address, not the property name. And let's see, they do not need to see the crew. They do not need to see invoice tax. They do not need to see invoice total, but total due is helpful. And the other options here, amount paid, we'll go ahead and leave that up for now. Credit available, we'll go ahead and leave that. Status and sent and controls do not need to be there. So once I'm done with that, the statement is much cleaner. Now I have the invoice number, the invoice date, I have the client's name along with their email that's available there. I have a title description, which I could add to each individual invoice, some type of a label. I'm not doing that this time. I have the property address, the total due, amount paid, and credit available. So this is a pretty decent looking statement. Now, without delay, I can click the print button. And I will call this our more professional PDF statement. We'll call it the PDF statement for short. The other one will be the snip statement. And I will call this test statement PDF. Please do the same. And click save. And when I review this statement, I will see a slightly cleaner looking version of the old statement. This one has the total due, the amount paid, and the credit available all totaled for the customer along with their invoices, and we're looking pretty good. All right, so that is the last step in how to create the producer statement option number 7. We'll move on to collect a payment. We now need to go through and collect on these payments. We will revert these all back to the original state by pressing the select all column. And now we need to get them all paid. So first we'll pay each invoice at a time, usually starting from the last one or the oldest one first. So June 24th needs a payment. We'll click the payment button, $sign there, and wait for that to load. We'll click paid invoice in full. We're going to double check that the customer doesn't have a credit balance. Now we know that this customer does not, but it is an important first step. Make sure that they do have a credit balance. Check out the prices that are available. Click, for this intents and purposes of this, we're going to say that they're going to all be paying by credit card. So we're going to use credit card, and we're going to review that everything else looks in order, everything looks fine, and we're going to hit add payment. We're going to click return to invoices, and there'll be one less invoice available in the list. If we wanted to see where that invoice went, we would click on this pay button, and we would be able to see it there. There it is. This paid button toggles on the view between only seeing things that are paid and seeing anything other than that, which would be unpaid. So we'll continue on to the next one. We'll hit the $sign. We will click the paid in full. We will select the method for credit card. We will review that they have no credit. We will review that it's 70 is being paid, and we will add payment. We'll return to invoices and do it again. Here we have the next one. We will click the $sign. And for this time, we're going to just switch it up. We're going to say that they pay in check. Pay invoice in full. We're going to choose check. And for the first time, we will add a notes field here that says they paid in check number 4567. And we'll click add payment. And now the third invoice will be paid. We'll return back to the invoices list. We have one left to go. We'll click the $sign. We will click paid in full. We'll choose the select method and say this time we're going to use the fact the customer paid with an ACH bank transfer. So we're going to choose that option. And we'll click add payment. Alrighty. There are no records found in the filter for Kumar Gonzalez because they're all paid. I'll need to click the paid button, and now I can see all of them here and move on to the very last step, which is to send them by email. I can select all of them, and I will go send by email. Send by email. Now I do want to point out that I actually have just sent myself an email in real life using this test account. So we always want to make sure that if we're doing a test account, we're using our own email or an email that is not of an actual customer, someone who would want to receive an email. There is another option here that is also mark as sent by email. So if for some reason we can't actually send the email or we don't want to, we would use send by, mark as sent by email, as opposed to actual send by email. Two different options. Once that email is sent, we would go to the email module, which is here, and we will just simply verify that the emails have been sent. Here there's an option at the top of the email module for a sub-module called Sent History. And then here you can see the very last three, 4 invoices. And you can see that the date and time corresponds to right now, and you can see that the status on them is sent. You can also see that that no one has opened it. If you wanted to see what they would look like, you could click to view, and then you would be able to see the email that was sent to the customer. And at that time, that concludes the test. We will simply review the order. We entered a customer, we entered a property, we made an event, which was a series. We then clocked the job time. We then reviewed an event. We converted that event into an invoice. We made multiple invoices so that we could then produce a statement. And then we collected payments on those invoices that we made and then emailed it to the customer and double checked that the customer had in fact been sent those emails. And that concludes the test. If you can get this far, you're doing pretty good, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.